A big hello again to our parents in Asia. Welcome back to our Everything Boarding School video series. To our first-time viewers, Everything Boarding School is a community outreach effort to bring the good news of boarding education to all corners of Asia. I'm your host, Daniel Sito. I'm an education consultant and founder and head of Sesame Education. We're conducting our interview today from Singapore, and the topic is Impact of Boarding Education on Me. We're very privileged to have with us Mr. Omer Khalayleh, Director of Admissions at Manara School in Egypt.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And I just want to say how lovely it is through our years of our relationship being able to work together on a series like this. Your viewers are very lucky to have this.
Would you please kindly tell us about your background and history? Now, how did you first come in touch with boarding education? When did you start attending boarding school? And what has been your education path from that point onward?
But to kind of rewind a little, I am originally from Jordan. I lived some of my childhood in the UK. I lived my high school years, my teenage years in Jordan, and then I moved to the States, which I'll get to. The idea and concept of boarding school was a turning point in my life that changed everything. Okay, when I was in Jordan, I was in a public high school, and my biggest ambition was to study medicine or engineering, which is very common as the go-to things in Jordan, in a Jordan university. That year, my last year of high school, a boarding school opened up, the first of its kind in the Middle East, called King's Academy. And while I was a bit too old to apply, they helped me through the whole concept of boarding school to find opportunities elsewhere where I could potentially get the boarding school experience. I started applying to various boarding schools, and I was very lucky where I actually got a scholarship from His Majesty the King to Deerfield Academy. And that instant that I got the phone call of that acceptance, it literally changed my life. It sounds cliche, but I didn't realize how much it would change my life then. I then went on to apply to colleges, had an amazing year, a gap year, PG year at Deerfield, applied to multiple universities, and I ended up in Williams College and also had an amazing experience there. After that, I had promised His Majesty and the then head of school at King's Academy that I would come back and give back the same opportunities to other people in Jordan. So true to that, straight after college, I went in the admissions office at King's Academy, worked there for almost 10 years, providing the same opportunities for people to come to King's and change their lives. So after a beautiful, yet long experience at King's, I saw another school in the Middle East, another boarding school with the same concept of helping improving its country and its youth, open up just across the Red Sea in El Gouna, Egypt, called Manara School, which is where I am now. And I thought I had to get on board. I missed the foundation of King's, so I wanted to be in the foundation of a school that's similar. And I got here in November 2022, and we had to start everything from scratch. And this week is actually the first week of our first set of students starting at Manara School. But it's been wonderful because the same life-changing experience that I saw from when I went to Deerfield and the opportunities that people got to go to King's Academy, I'm seeing in these students right now. And this is a new concept to Egypt, a new concept to all of these kids. And there are so many things that the families are not sure of and unaware of. And we went through that whole process of reassuring them and them seeing how much of a valuable opportunity this is. So that's a very short background on how I got here.
What you said is really inspiring. If we look at the history of boarding education, it started with the Brits, right? For several, many centuries. and then later on the Americans, got hold of it, and has been, a part of the mainstream, idea all through. Except that, it is not equally, prevalent in all parts of the world. So, in Asia, and where I came from, Hong Kong, yes, many families were well aware of boarding education. But since then, I've relocated over here in Singapore, and I would say not not the same degree of a volume of families are familiar with the concept of boarding education. They would say, why? I mean, what is it about? That sort of thing. So, and hence that motivated me to try to create this series, video series, to try to share this good news of boarding education to as many families out here in Asia, not just particular cities, but including all the way from East Asia, Japan, all the way to the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. This big blob of land, hopefully more families can come to be able to benefit from it. Now, I would like to focus more on your personal story, and I would like to learn more about how did you initially feel about the idea of leaving home, and more like equally, how did your parents feel about the idea of letting you go? And what were the struggles, and how did the family as a whole arrive at that final decision of letting you apply?
Absolutely. So it's funny, when I actually started applying, my parents weren't fully on board, right? I always feel that
as expected,
parents are as expected, and the parents are always the ones that are more concerned than the actual child. And sometimes they project that, and the child will start feeling the same as the parents as a result. And we found that here as well. So I was in my last year in high school, and it's a very crucial year. It's like the Gaokao system in China, the A-levels in the UK. So it's very crucial. And they were afraid I was being distracted and getting my hopes up of applying to these schools, and not focusing on my studies, which is something more concrete and something that's tangible and there. But I think that switch happened when it became a reality, right? When they realized that, okay, this is an actual opportunity. It's not just something you're applying for. And we had to sit down. We had to look at the pros and the cons. And it was a huge gamble on my behalf, especially because I was going for a gap year, PG, postgraduate year. So if I went and I didn't get into colleges, this would create a huge problem for me when I came back to Jordan. But sometimes you do have to take that leap. And we were weighing kind of what opportunities would I have if I stayed? And then what opportunities could I have if I actually went? And obviously the excitement as a student kind of overshadowed my thoughts on, I'm going to miss my family, which I did, of course. And I think my parents were the ones that more, felt that okay, he's going, we're going to miss him, etc. But the fact that it was such an opportunity, it's a sacrifice that's worth making, because they understood after talking to multiple people what this could mean for my future. So that was the general process in terms of me and my parents.
Thank you. Now, when you later on, stepped onto the campus of Deerfield Academy, how did you feel? Was it as you expected, or was it like, kind of not entirely what you had expected? And, did you encounter any struggles? If so, how did you overcome them? And did your teachers at Deerfield play any role throughout the adjustment process, or how did it work out in the end?
Of course. So before I went, as most students obviously do, you comb through the whole website and every single video that school has to offer, and you try to make that image in your head, right? You try to visualize where you're going to be. But no matter how many videos you put, you can't get the same feeling. I actually arrived and stepped out of the taxi that brought me from the airport, and the main school building that had a clock struck 12 midnight on my birthday as I stepped out. And it was a beautiful moment, but my advisor was there to actually greet me at midnight.
Wow. At 12 midnight?
Kind of 12 midnight, and show me to my room and all of that. While at the beginning, out of excitement, I just went and woke up and explored. I later found out that my advisor actually came to pick me up and found I wasn't in my room. But as I kind of got to know people, there were two difficulties that I encountered, right? There was a social aspect, and then there was an academic aspect. The social aspect, a lot of it was it was kind of a culture shock. And it's not just, okay, there are Americans. No, there are people from all over the world. There were some from South Korea, some from Botswana that I was meeting. And really getting to understand the social cues, that's something that I had to work with. The way I overcame that, and it happens kind of naturally in boarding school, is when you're in different programs. So you have your classes, different groups of people. You have your co-curriculars that you're doing. You have your dorm. So you're interacting with different people in different situations. And it kind of comes naturally from the experience that you understand more the culture, you know how to deal with different people with different backgrounds. And it was beautiful how it happened organically from the way boarding schools are built. Now, the other half, the academics, I had two main problems. The first one was everything was in English. I had studied all my life in Arabic, maths, physics. And the second one was writing essays. I had never, in my high school experience in a public school in Jordan, knew how to write an essay. They just don't teach that. My teachers, I still have the copy of my first essay, and it's laughable. If you see it, it would be very comical. But my teachers were patient with me, and I would meet with them outside of class. They would tell me, even nuance, very basic things that I was doing wrong and how I could improve them, and giving me chances where this isn't your final draft. It's okay. You can do it again. We understand that you don't have this experience. And they helped me out throughout that, where when I went to college, I could write a full essay. And I wrote hundreds of pages in college because of that training. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't last through the first semester in university. The other half of learning everything in Arabic and then in English again, teachers were also very patient. I had one of my math teachers, it was something as simple as Arabic is, right to left versus English is left to right. And I made small mistakes because of that. But they understood that and they gave me second chances, benefit of the doubt. So those are the main problems I faced and how I dealt with them and how I was supported by the community, whether teachers or students, and how to navigate all that.
So now that you have the benefit of the hindsight looking back, right? If you were to look back at those boarding times at Deerfield, what were some of your most cherished moments of that year?
I'm getting very, very nostalgic when asking that. Sometimes I sit down and remember, either through pictures, whether it's at Deerfield or in college, and I remember the good and the bad. I remember hard days and the good days, and I can tell you, without a doubt, both kinds, whether the good and the bad, I cherish. Like, I wish I could go back and relive I don't care if it's the good or the bad moments. I want to relive them. But to be even more specific, the ones that stand out to me the most, and this I applied in college later, is the interactions and the time you spend with the people. You're not going to remember an essay you wrote for history class about something. You'll learn, but you're not going to remember the details. But you will remember the people you met and how they made you feel. Yes.
Yes.
So that was the biggest thing is, if I go back now, it's not going to be the same without the same people I experienced it with.
If you look at, that experience as a whole, and how that had shaped you and prepare you for what you are today, what would you say? I mean, how would that 1 year be so pivotal as to make any life-changing changes into this teenager?
I mean, where to begin, right? There are so many small things that I learned, and even the larger things. I learned obviously how to write an essay, right? That helped me throughout college, but even small things like learning how to do laundry, right? Which is under the umbrella of being truly independent and realizing, and this is something that most parents, I don't think, realize, and it's counterintuitive, that the bond between the student and the parent actually grows stronger when they go to boarding school. Even though they're physically apart, they're going to get stronger. Because one of the things I realized as I became more independent is the things that used to be done for me from my parents, I now have to do. So you then realize the effort and the things your parents do for you and how valuable they are.
You become grateful.
You become grateful. And I've seen, and I know my parents saw this, but even with students throughout my years in boarding schools, after 1 month of being there, every single parent saying, I don't know what you've done to my kid, but keep doing it because they've changed in that 1 month, right? So, anything from academics in terms of knowing how to navigate, how to organize my time, and really segment everything I have to do and plan ahead, whether it's in academics or socially, pushing my boundaries, realizing that it's okay to be outside of your comfort zone, because that's when you achieve things to be proud of. And also how to support one another, because I was supported. So you then understand how to support the other. And also how to interact with people, whether they're different backgrounds, different beliefs, how to respect that and listen and also share with respect. So, I mean, the lessons are endless, and the student doesn't realize that they're picking those values up and learning them until later in life when they actually come and use them. You're not going to be sitting in a class, how to do laundry 101. You're going to be just interacting and moving around and getting your life together. And then later you realize wow, I've learned so much just from being there.
I have this, sometimes I'll reflect upon life and I'll start having different what if scenario. So let's imagine for a while, what if you did not go to take that opportunity at DFU? How much difference did that decision to go off to America for boarding education, even for that 1 year, how much of a window or door did it open for you, for your life?
Dan, I think about that, that exact idea is what if I didn't go? What would I, and it kind of I get scared because I realize, and this is probably after seeing the opportunities out there, probably back then, if I just didn't get in, I'd be okay, I don't know what I'm missing out on. But now in hindsight, it's kind of scary because, I'd finished my last year of high school and applied to a university, and I'll only get accepted into, or what I would study would depend on just my grades rather than my passion about something. So I'd have to be stuck in like, okay, this is what's going to get you a good income and socially is acceptable and in Jordan. And then I start thinking like, okay, but what if I did well? And then I think after that, in terms of job opportunities and career, and honestly, my mind goes blank. It's to that extent where I have no idea what I'd be able to do. It's almost like because I got to know what I actually achieved and the opportunity I got, it's almost something that I have no idea what I would have done. I know that's not a concrete answer, but I always give it some thought, and it's like, wow, there's so many things that have opened up to me, and I'm not just talking about that 1 year university, opportunities to do programs. Me being in Egypt right now, I'd probably still be in Jordan. I probably wouldn't have gone to King's to work there and start that experience. So yeah, it's because so many opportunities opened up for me. It's like, well, I probably wouldn't have had anything, which is an extreme. I probably would have worked hard, but yeah, it's scary to think about.
I mean, now it's so heartening, to see how you have come back to the Middle East and devoted your life to preaching the gospel of boarding education. I mean, you are the boarding school guy. I mean, everyone knows you as the boarding school guy, and I think many families they would thank you because of this message about boarding education that pass on to their children. And it's just so heartening to see that. And I say thank you. Now, what advice would you like to give some of our viewers, our parent viewers, especially if they are from the Middle East region, as to how they should consider whether boarding education is for their family and more specifically for their child? I mean, how would you guide them into thinking about that process?
So the first thing that we need to eliminate from the thought process, especially with Middle Eastern families, and this is something whether in Jordan when Kings first started, whether here in Egypt when Manara first started, is the idea of my child living away from me. Culturally, what we touched on earlier is out of the question. That's something maybe shameful. I can't keep track of them. I'm afraid that they'll lose the culture and the things and the things that they taught them, the values they taught them. The first thing is to change that mindset, to just think about it in a different way. You are not abandoning your kids. You are not letting go of their values and all of that. You are giving them an opportunity, and you are a partner with the boarding school you're sending them to in helping your kid grow both academically and socially and in other aspects too in terms of character. So it's very important, especially with our culture, is it's something that might be shameful. Move that aside. I know it's hard, but just think about the doors that will open to your child. As a father myself, and Daniel, I'm sure you agree, is everyone wants their kid to be better than them, right?
Yes.
And this is a fantastic opportunity to do that. It's through boarding school. It's opportunities on steroids, right? Your kid, you could take them to any strong school and get the academics and get a great education, but teaching them social skills, teaching them values such as respect and whatnot. It's fine if you live it at home, but wouldn't it be great if you can ensure that those values also been implemented and the child lives them at their school. And that's what boarding school is you get to really be immersed. Just as you get immersed in a language and go to a country to learn that language, you're being immersed in how to be a well-rounded human being, academically, socially, emotionally, everything. So just realize that opportunity. So those would be the two biggest points for families, especially from the Middle East, is one, move away from the idea of shame, because you're going to have proof in your child after 1 month the value of what opportunity that you've given them. The second is realizing that this is an opportunity that will strengthen your child and not shape them to the worst, as a lot of parents may think.
And if I may, I would like to add on what you just said about, some parents being concerned with maybe the child after being sent out of home might start losing the values that they had learned from their parents. I would like to add on to that nowadays with modern technology, we can FaceTime, we can WhatsApp, we can Zoom with our child, on almost daily. And so there is the risk of our child losing their root, I would say would be that risk would be very much contained nowadays.
Absolutely. And I remember when I went, there was no Skype back then. Maybe you could make a phone call, right? But there was no Skype. I couldn't see my parents for months. And this is exactly what you said, Daniel, and this is the partnership part, right? There are so many families here that came to Manara and are afraid, I'm afraid my child will lose X, Y, and Z, whether it's values or religion or all of that. And realize that no, we want to support you to maintain those, but also be open to respecting others, right? And we don't want to cut off the connection between the parent and the student. We allow them to call their families. We allow them to be in touch. We share with the families the things they're going through and all of that, so we can work together to help maintain values and help them through trouble. I've seen a student just video chat, so they're basically seeing their family every day or every other day, just like a normal day. The one thing is they can't give them a hug, but it makes it even more a virtual hug, yes. But it makes that when they actually see them in person, all the more beautiful when it happens.
Yes, absolutely, I agree. If we were to look at it from another angle, from an admissions angle, what type of students would be most fit or would benefit the most from boarding school, from boarding education? What would you say?
I would definitely say, there are multiple kinds. One of the biggest ones that we've encountered is, one, those who don't feel challenged enough in their school. Boarding school will challenge you no matter how smart you are, no matter how socially intelligent you are, it's going to challenge you. But at the same time, with that challenge, you have support. The other kinds of types of students would be those who don't have an opportunity, right? They might just have one kind of opportunity of the local school that they have. Boarding schools break country barriers and geographical barriers. So it's accessible for everyone. That's the beauty about it. And you can get that opportunity, and it doesn't have to be right next to your home, which you might have, very few opportunities. And that's many, at least I found here, it's many of them. That's what's holding them back. So opportunities and a challenge.
For those families or parents who would like to seriously consider boarding education, how would you advise them to start their planning process and the preparation process? How early should they begin? And, and when they do begin, what exactly does it mean? I mean, what type of academics should the child go through? Should they study more English? Say, for example, there was, in your case, you didn't go through a lot of rigorous English training before you went to Deerfield, and then you had your struggle. So now, fast forward, we're now in the 2023. So how could in more modern day times, families from the Middle East region can prepare their child better, more equipped for their boarding school experience?
I'm going to segment this in there's 4 steps, kind of. There's first preparation 1, we'll call it, then research, then preparation 2, and then apply, right? Preparation 1 is those who still maybe have 2, 3, 4 years until they're old enough to apply to boarding schools. And for that, obviously everybody has different opportunities available to them. Whether it's co-curriculars and sports, whether it's courses, each person, depending on the environment that's around them, have different things available to them. What we want to see is, with the tools you have, whether you as a parent or as a student, you're taking advantage of everything that's in front of you, right? No matter how little it is, take advantage from when they're young, whether it's different activities, even English. I tell some families who are young, have them watch movies in English. It doesn't have to necessarily be courses, right? Some people can't afford courses. Just so they have that kind of innate English ability, right? Those are kind of 2 big things. And make sure, obviously, academically, they get the support they need to maintain strong academic presence in general, right? And then the second part is research. And the reason I mentioned that before a next preparation is each school all around the world, each boarding school, have different criteria that they focus on and look at. Some, they have a huge weight on athletics. Maybe if you are a pro football player, but you've never played in let's just say a field, it's just in the road, which is how I grew up, but you're really good at playing, that's something big. Maybe some would look at character, like at Manara, we would look at leadership and character really weigh heavily. They need to have those attributes. So once you kind of do your research and be like, what, I want to focus in on boarding schools in the Middle East or in Europe or in the US, and then what kind of boarding schools? Some boarding schools focus in on, I don't know, it could be outside kind of, hiking, outdoor activities. So maybe you want to focus in the things that you do with your child and your child does to the school that you're applying to, right? You want to cater and have the file of the student be well equipped and strong when they apply to the school, so it fits the school. One school might not care at all about, I don't know, the English level. Some of them might have, even if you have 0 English, they can support you. So that's probably something you don't want to focus your efforts and money and resources on, and you want to focus on other things like, activities to do, sports, anything of that sort. So that's when, after you do your second preparation from what you've researched to hone in on the school that you want. And then finally, you go in to apply. And please make sure, as you said, Daniel, apply early, meaning don't leave it to last minute. These requirements take time, and schools like to see that you're eager to join in from the beginning. As soon as you open the applications, you're ready to apply. You're not waiting till the last week because, they like to see interest.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Omer, for your time. It has been most precious learning from you, and especially to learn from your personal story. And I would encourage all parents to follow Omer on social media, and also to check out Manara School in Egypt, and where Omer works as the director of admissions.
And thank you, Daniel. It's always a pleasure to see you and work with you. And thank you for what you're doing for the boarding school community. Thank you. And to all the viewers, thank you for watching.
To all viewers out there, if you have enjoyed what we shared today and would like to learn more from us, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on everything boarding school. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, happy boarding school hunting.